The solemn, sonorous chime was not a sound one merely heard, it was a presence that occupied the soul. It resonated not from the walls, but from the very air, a deep, mournful tone that vibrated in the bones and chilled the blood. It was the sound of a lock turning in a forgotten tomb, the sound of a final judgment rendered. On the great star chart, the crimson glyph pulsed with the inexorable rhythm of a dying heart, and the hostile icon, a shard of pure malevolence, crawled across the void with unnerving slowness. Kalen felt the well-practiced calm of the battlefield descend upon him, a cold blanket over the fire of his fear. "Shut it down, Alara!" he commanded, his voice a low growl that cut through the chiming alarm. "Whatever you did, undo it. Plunge this room back into darkness." Alara's face was a mask of pale horror, her wide gray eyes fixed on the approaching threat. The scholar's triumph had curdled into a terrible, dawning responsibility. I'm trying," she stammered, her fingers flying across the console, no longer with the grace of discovery but with the frantic energy of desperation. She pressed the glyph she had identified as return, then another that seemed to mean halt. The result was immediate and terrifying. The chiming grew louder, its pitch rising to a discordant, insistent shriek. The crimson glyph on the screen flared, burning like a baleful star. The hostile icon did not stop, it accelerated. "By the light!" she breathed, snatching her hands back from the console as if it were white-hot iron. "It's not accepting the command. It's interpreting my attempts to disengage as further confirmation of the breach. We're not just ringing the dinner bell, we're telling it the meal is ready." "Then smash it," Kalen said, raising the Sunreaver. The weapon felt heavy, inadequate, a child's toy against this cosmic calamity. "If it is a thinking machine, let us rob it of its thoughts." "No!" Alara cried, placing herself between him and the console. Her silver bracer gave a faint hum, as if sensing his intent. "You don't understand. This machine may be the only thing that can stop it. Smashing it would be like blinding a sentinel in the face of an invading army. We would be helpless, and this thing would still be coming." The logic, as much as he hated it, was sound. Kalen lowered the weapon, his knuckles white. The pragmatist in him warred with the knight. The knight demanded action, a charge against the foe. The pragmatist knew this was a foe he couldn't see, couldn't touch, and couldn't possibly fight. "What is it?" he asked, his gaze locked on the approaching symbol. "Does this library of yours have a chapter on the monster at the door?" Galvanized by the question, Alara's scholarly instincts took over once more, a single candle of focus in the howling wind of her fear. She turned back to the console, her approach now cautious and deliberate. Using the query glyph she had mastered, she highlighted the hostile icon. The main view screen partitioned. The star chart shrank to one side, while the other filled with a cascade of alien script surrounding a series of stark, chilling diagrams. They saw a rotating image of the incoming object. It was built upon the same chassis as the juggernaut that had nearly killed them, but scaled to a monstrous degree. It was less a sentinel and more a flying fortress, bristling with protrusions Kalen could only interpret as weapons lances designed to spit the same deadly red light as his own Sunreaver, but 1,000 times more powerful. Below that, another diagram showed the object arriving at their world, Illyria. A web of brilliant, terrible light emanated from it, enveloping the planet in a cage of energy. The final image was the most horrifying, the blue and green of their world being scoured away, leaving behind a scorched, blackened cinder. Alara could not read the accompanying text, but the glyph for the protocol itself was repeated over and over, hammered home with brutal clarity. And beside it, a single word she could now decipher, taught to her by the machine's own lexicon. "Purge." "It's a cleaner," she whispered, her voice hollow. "A failsafe to sterilize the colony in the event of contamination. The ancients didn't just abandon this world, Kalen. They locked it away. They set a guard dog of cosmic proportions to ensure nothing ever got out. And we just woke it up to tell it the prisoners are loose. The full, crushing weight of their situation settled upon them. They had not discovered a lost treasure. They had sprung a cosmic trap millennia in the setting. Every lord and king, every goblin in its cave and dragon on its peak, every soul on Illyria was blissfully unaware that a silent, automated executioner had just been dispatched to their world. There has to be a way to stop it, Kalen insisted, his pragmatism now a desperate search for a solution. No one builds a weapon without a way to disarm it. A command to stand down. An override. An override, Elara repeated, the word igniting a spark of hope. Her eyes scanned the console. Yes. There must be. But it wouldn't be here, on the main navigational panel. That would be like leaving the key to the castle right by the front gate. She worked the controls, no longer trying to stop the alarm but to find something else. A map. Not of the stars, but of the facility itself. A new diagram appeared on the screen, a schematic of the keep. It was a master blueprint drawn by some divine architect, a complex, multi-leveled lattice of chambers and corridors. The room they were in was a small node at the top, labeled with a glyph shaped like an eye. Deeper down, far below them, another chamber was highlighted. It was larger, more central, and its glyph was a complex knot of interlocking lines, a symbol of ultimate authority. There, Elara pointed, her finger trembling slightly. The primary control nexus. If an override exists, it will be there. As if in response to her discovery, a low grinding sound echoed from the far side of the throne room. A section of the wall, previously seamless, slid aside with a hiss of ancient pneumatics, revealing a dark, hexagonal tunnel that descended into the mountain's heart. The path was laid bare. It seems this place agrees with you, Kalen said grimly. He checked his sunreaver. The obsidian block within glowed with a healthy light, but he knew its power was finite. We have no food, barely any water, and we're about to march deeper into the home of the machines that want to kill us, to find a switch that may not exist, to stop a moon-sized killer we just summoned. The bards will sing of this, I'm sure. They will sing of our victory. Elara countered, her chin held high, though her pallor betrayed her fear. She refused to let despair claim her. She had started this. She would see it through. With a shared look of grim resolve, they entered the newly opened passage. The air immediately grew colder, smelling of sterile metal and ozone. The floor was not stone but a metal grating, and through it, they could see bundles of thick, black cables pulsing with a faint inner light, the very veins of the keep. This was not the tomb of a forgotten king. It was the guts of a slumbering beast. The corridor opened into a vast, cavernous chamber. It was an armory. Racks of sunreavers, hundreds of them, stood in silent rows, all inert. Pods lined the walls, holding the hulking, dormant shapes of juggernauts. In the center of the room, on a raised dais, sat a single, smaller console. More artifacts, Kalen murmured, his curiosity warring with his caution. We need every advantage we can get, Elara said, her gaze fixed on the central console. She approached it cautiously, her staff held ready. The panel was dark, but as she drew near, it flickered to life, displaying a simple schematic of a humanoid form. Beside the console lay two objects. One was a gorget, a collar of seamless, night-black metal designed to protect the throat. Kalen picked it up. It was lighter than boiled leather but felt as strong as adamantine. As his fingers closed around it, a soft blue light traced the edges before fading. It felt alive. He instinctively clasped it around his neck. It settled into place as if forged for him, humming with a barely perceptible energy. The second object was a flat, thin tablet of the same black material as Elara's key, about the size of her spellbook. She lifted it. Its surface was cold and inert. Perhaps a portable lexicon? she mused. A way to interface with other systems. She stowed it carefully in her satchel. Her attention returned to the console. It showed the humanoid schematic, now highlighting the gorget Kalen wore. She touched a flashing glyph beside it. A stream of information flowed, and though the words were alien, the diagrams were not. It showed the gorget, then depicted an incoming bolt of red light. As the bolt neared the wearer's head, a shimmering, hexagonal barrier of blue light appeared, deflecting it. A personal ward, Elara breathed. A shield that guards the head. Before Kalen could reply, a sharp, mechanical clicking echoed from the far corners of the armory. From alcoves in the ceiling, 3 new constructs descended. They were not the lumbering juggernauts, but smaller, faster machines, like metallic spiders the size of large hounds. Their multifaceted red eyes glowed with malevolent purpose as they scuttled down the walls, their chitinous legs finding purchase on the smooth surface. Sentinels! Kalen yelled, bringing his Sunreaver to bear. The first one leaped, covering the distance between them in a silent, terrifying bound. Kalen fired. A beam of searing red light struck the creature midair. It staggered, black scorch marks appearing on its metallic carapace, but it was not destroyed. It landed, regained its footing, and fired a volley of smaller, faster energy bolts from a cannon on its back. Kalen dodged too, but the third was too fast. He raised his arm instinctively, but as the bolt neared his head, the gorget flared to life. A brilliant, hexagonal shield of blue light materialized an inch from his face, intercepting the bolt with a sharp crack. The ward shimmered and vanished, the metal at his neck now warm to the touch. "It works!" he shouted, a grin of disbelief flashing across his face. Elara was already chanting, her hands weaving intricate patterns in the air. Fulmen Proidiator, *. A bolt of raw lightning, jagged and brilliant white, erupted from her staff and slammed into a second sentinel, causing it to convulse and smoke, its systems shorting out. The third construct ignored Kalen and scurried towards Elara, recognizing the mage as the greater threat. It raised a clawed foreleg, ready to strike. "Elara, move!" Kalen yelled. She stood her ground, her left hand coming up, palm open. She focused her will into the silver bracer. As the sentinel's claw descended, a shimmering dome of force expanded from the bracer, enveloping her. The claw struck the barrier with a deafening clang of metal on pure energy, scraping uselessly against its surface. The field held. Seeing his chance, Kalen lunged forward, the Sunreaver held like a spear. He drove the weapon's emitter housing deep into a joint in the creature's leg, then pulled the trigger. The concentrated, point-blank blast blew the limb clean off. The sentinel screeched, a sound of grinding gears and static, and collapsed onto its side. He fired again, a final, merciful shot into its central eye, and it went still. The armory fell silent, the only sounds their own ragged breaths and the faint, ever-present hum of the deep-seated power around them. Kalen leaned against the weapon rack, the adrenaline slowly draining away, leaving behind a profound exhaustion. Elara let her force field dissipate, her arm trembling from the effort. They were alive. They had new, powerful tools. But they were deeper in the dark, and Kalen could still hear the phantom echo of that solemn, chiming alarm. He looked at Elara, whose face was smeared with grime and lit by the glow of her staff. "That primary control nexus," he said, his voice hoarse. "It had better be worth it." Elara nodded, her gaze drifting toward the far end of the armory, where another hexagonal tunnel beckoned them ever downward. "It has to be," she replied, her voice a fragile whisper in the vast, silent chamber. "Because up on that map, the Sentinel is still coming. And it's not getting any slower."